I'm Esther Solomon, the opinion editor for Haaretz English, and I'm here with Emily Landau.
Hi.
You're a research fellow at Israel's Institute for National Security Studies and head of its Arms Control and Regional Security Program. You teach at Tel Aviv University, at the Interdisciplinary Center in Herzliya, and at the University of Haifa, and your most recent book is Iran, North Korea and the Future of Nuclear Non-Proliferation, which is of course very timely.
Yes.
Now, you said that you think that perhaps President Trump is open in some ways to becoming a fixer of the deal and not just a nixer as he's been characterized up till now. Now, when President Obama was preparing the deal, this is how you described it a few years ago. In order to sell the deal, the Obama administration misled the American public by presenting the choice as between this deal or war.
Oh, yeah.
In your words, he's offering a choice that only a fool would, run towards war. They would have to run towards the deal. Now, if Trump does walk away from the deal and the talk about him being a potential fixer, fails for one reason or another, does that mean that we are in fact closer to war because without a deal, the other alternative still is only war?
So the other alternative was never war. Okay, my point in what I wrote back then is that the Obama administration and Obama himself was presenting a false dichotomy. Okay, that was a political position. It wasn't a depiction of reality. And as you said correctly, if you say it's either this deal or war, then obviously any rational person would run towards that deal. But that was never the choice. That was a political position to make you run towards the deal. So back then, it was always that deal, or negotiations would continue and hopefully get a better deal. It was never that deal or war. And today, it's not this deal or war either. My best assessment right now, and I don't like making predictions, if he does leave the deal, if we're not able, if there's no agreement with the Europeans to get a real, I don't like to call it a fix to the deal, I like to call it strengthening the deal because I think that's really what's on the table. I don't like the fix it or nix it. I think that's a misleading terminology. But if he's not able to strengthen the deal and he does leave the deal, what I believe will most likely happen is the Iranians, of course, will be screaming to high heaven about how this could happen. They will not leave the deal. They will try to strengthen their ties with the Europeans to get the Europeans more on their side, together against the Americans, to isolate the Americans, to drive that wedge even further. So the basic interest actually, I think, will be not these doomsday scenarios. I don't think they're going to happen. I think we'll be in a new chapter of this ongoing nuclear crisis. The situation regarding Iran needs to be turned around now. And it's not only the nuclear, of course, it's Iran in the region, Iran in Syria, everything we're seeing. Iran is complicit and behind massive war crimes in Syria. They're challenging Israel directly, militarily from Syria. Iran is entrenching itself in Syria. It has no business being in Syria. So there's additional developments. Iran needs to get different messages from the international community. And as I said, the time to do this is now, not to enter into a new, ongoing, never-ending negotiation, which only will grant Iran valuable time to entrench itself in the region and continue en route in the nuclear realm.
We're talking about the non-proliferation treaty and Iran's potential threat to pull out if Trump walks away from the Iran deal. What would happen, in a theoretical scenario if Iran said, we'll stay in the treaty, but only if Israel joins it?
Look, I think all of the Iranian threats, first of all, to leave the JCPOA are empty threats.
Because they have too much to lose?
Well, the deal is not bad for Iran. Iran got a pretty good result from its point of view. If you think of where Iran started, having been caught deceiving the international community, violating the NPT, they got a deal that, legitimizes their program, no talk about missiles, which are the delivery mechanism, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, the last thing they want is for this deal to end. because it's good for Iran. Iran and Israel are worlds apart with regard to the nuclear issue. Of course, Iran would have an interest in drawing parallels between Iran and Israel, but just at the most superficial level, Israel is not a member of the NPT. Iran is a member of the NPT. The reason Israel is not a member is Israel took that decision back in the late 1960s, probably when Israel was on the verge of becoming a nuclear state. Israel is an assumed nuclear state. It has a policy of ambiguity, et cetera, but according to general assumptions, it crossed the threshold somewhere in the late 1960s. So there was a conscious decision that Israel was not going to join a treaty and then cheat on it. Israel has a record of so many decades of being an assumed nuclear state, a record of restraint and responsibility, of being low-key, low-profile, of having been engaged in so many wars in the Middle East without bringing the nuclear issue into the frame. That's a good thing. I would argue, and I have argued in a long article, that Israel's policy of nuclear ambiguity actually created a unique model in the Middle East that over the years has enhanced stability, strategic stability, not undermined it. Iran, this regime, is strongly, strongly motivated to become a nuclear state. This is a serious challenge, and it's not an easy challenge. What brings results is when there's pressure and when there's a danger to the continued viability of the regime. That's the only thing that works.
Okay, you said in an article you wrote for us actually in Haaretz quite a few years ago, you said that the one element that actually makes Iran so dangerous is that it acts out of cold rationality, which is perhaps different from what some people's impressions are from the rather overheated rhetoric that we hear from Tehran from time to time. Do you think that American policy on Iran is also being conducted with that same degree of cold rationality?
Leaving aside everything else you would want to say about the Trump administration, and it's certainly a controversial administration, zeroing in on its policy towards Iran and WMD proliferation more generally, I would say that there's a strong logic that we see playing out, even within all of the other things that are going on this topic specifically. We see consistency, we see logic, and in fact the Trump administration's approach, which has basically been to say, this deal, put aside the rhetoric, it's the worst deal ever, I'm going to rip it up. Right, but we've seen that has not happened. What has happened in his more measured statements when they presented policy in mid-October and when he made his speech on the 12th of January. If you look at those two speeches, what you will see is the United States saying, the Trump administration saying, this deal has problems, and it does. Everything that they are raising is not a pretext, it's not an excuse for leaving the deal. Everything is a real problem in this deal. Take a serious look at these problems and work with the Trump administration to get a strengthened agreement.